Eminem, Kamikaze. We're going to review the 10th studio album by Detroit rapper Marshall Mathers. Eminem doesn't really need much introduction at this point. He's the best-selling rapper of all time, one of the best-selling musicians of all time, and he is returning with Kamikaze after the shitty reception that his last album, Revival, received. Revival was a bad album. Eminem sounded outdated. There were a lot of lazy collaborations with pop artists. Eminem collaborated with Ed Sheeran on River, something you wouldn't expect Eminem to be doing. If you think back to the 2000s, would Eminem really be collaborating with a ginger guy with an acoustic guitar who raps sometimes? Or would he be slamming him like he did to the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC? I'm not done talking about things I didn't like about Revival. It was long. It was like an hour and 20 minutes long. Eminem, at the moment, he just like rhymes words together. He just like reads the dictionary and just like the technical rhyming is interesting and it's good, but it's fucking, what's the point? He just rhymes loads of words together. Eminem will just rhyme all these like words, and he doesn't say anything interesting. So technically, he is a good rapper still, but he's got nothing to say. Now that he is happier in himself, he's got not as much things to talk about. He's made up with his mum on record. He's stopped taking drugs. And while these are all good things for him personally, it strips away a lot of the edge and the aggression of Eminem's music. And that is what made him a compelling artist, along with the fact that he was technically one of the best rappers of all time. So this is how we come in to Kamikaze. My expectations were low, and I was slightly impressed with Kamikaze. It certainly wasn't as bad as Revival or Encore or Relapse, but it's certainly not up there with the pantheon of Eminem albums, the golden trilogy that is Marshall Mathers LP, Slim Shady LP, and The Eminem Show. There are some interesting tracks on Kamikaze nevertheless. My favourite is Stepping Stone, where Eminem is at his best here, talking about his relationship with the other members of D12. He's quite humble, talking about how he felt like he used the group sometimes, or he didn't really push D12 enough at the time. But Eminem is really frank here. He's really open about his role in the decline of D12. And most interesting of all, he does say that D12 died when Proof died, something that has been known for a long time. Stepping Stone is one of those Eminem songs that I like. Even in his later career, he still makes music that is very humble and very honest. And unfortunately, he doesn't have any other stories like this to tell, because again, on Marshall Mathers LP 2, he talked about his mother and finally closed that really negative, nasty run of songs he did about her. Again, last album, he apologised to Kim, his long-suffering ex-wife, mother of his child. And on Kamikaze, we get Stepping Stone, where Eminem talks about his role in the decline of D12. These are all interesting concepts, because Eminem is now 45, he's in therapy, he understands his negative behaviours more. But what else are we going to talk about next? Like, what on the next album, who is he going to apologise to? I imagine he'll have a song about how his daughter's life has been ruined by him being in the limelight. Something he's touched on in many, many songs before. The most personal we get throughout the rest of the album is Eminem talking about how no one respects him in rap, how he's a great rapper, how he sold loads of music, how all these SoundCloud rappers nowadays are shit. That's as deep as we get into the person that is Eminem. And that is what used to make his music compelling. You would really get this open guy talking about how messed up his life was. And now he's in a better place. There's not as much really for Eminem to talk about. The criticism that Revival received is a big theme on Kamikaze. Interestingly, Kamikaze follows 8 months after Revival. In the social media post to announce the album, Eminem says he's trying not to overthink this album. And Eminem has made some changes to Kamikaze to avoid the backlash that Revival received. There are none of these big name features like Alicia Keys Skylar Grey, who apparently we're still trying to make happen as a thing. And Eminem mainly concentrates on straight rap songs on Kamikaze. He takes a few shots at SoundCloud rappers and this new wave. He has a go at Lil Yachty, Lil Xan, Joe Budden, and even Machine Gun Kelly, who I was quite happy just leaving Machine Gun Kelly alone, but Eminem started this beef that apparently started when Machine Gun Kelly was tweeting about Eminem's daughter. So now Machine Gun Kelly has responded with a diss track. Very good diss track, don't get me wrong, very good. Probably the best song I've ever heard from Machine Gun Kelly. He sounds really ferocious and angry here. Maybe shows a bit too much respect to Eminem. He keeps saying that, oh yeah, Eminem, you're a great rapper, you're in my top 10, you're great. And then he'll just slag him off for the rest of the song. I must say, this has really revived interest in Machine Gun Kelly. His Eminem diss, there's an audio version and a video version. They've both got about 5 million views in the space of a day. I can't think of anything Machine Gun Kelly's done even slightly recently that people would care about to that level. So we'll see what happens to Machine Gun Kelly. I'm sure he'll fade back into obscurity and mediocrity, but for the moment, he's eating right now. People are paying attention to him again, so that's great. Thanks, Eminem, for that. However, I feel like Machine Gun Kelly is probably the only rapper that will respond to Eminem. Maybe Joe Budden as well. He hasn't had much attention recently, but certainly the younger generation, I don't think they really see Eminem as a credible artist or threat to them. They've got completely different fan bases at this point. Eminem will sell loads of records, but he isn't within that inner circle of rappers that are really changing the genre and moving it in this interesting new direction. Now imagine it'd be like if Grandmaster Caz released a massive diss song against the Migos. They'd probably listen to it and then they wouldn't care afterwards because no one's listening to Grandmaster Caz in 2018. And in 2018, the fan base for Lil Yachty does not overlap with the fan base for Eminem. For instance, Juice WRLD, he's born in 1998. Eminem's first album came out in 1997. There is just no crossover between those two artists anymore. I listened to Royce da 5'9's Book of Ryan yesterday, and that is a really naked, honest account of Royce da 5'9's upbringing and how it affected him as a man and how that upbringing affects how he's raising his own children. I would love to hear Eminem make an album that's really personal, that talks about the origin of himself, that really goes into these issues that you would expect. You're an older rapper now, Eminem's 45. There are plenty of rappers over 40 now releasing really interesting, great music. And that's because these people like Jay-Z and Nas, they've embraced being older. Eminem ignores this and just does what he always does. There's loads of nonsensical rhymes, digs at celebrities, talking about really like crude sex, and it just sounds a bit strange coming from someone old enough to be some of these people's dads. So I'd love to see an Eminem album that really embraces himself as a person and gives us something interesting, something more interesting than Kamikaze. The most interesting part of it is that he's drumming up all this interest in beefs with other rappers. The rhymes are technically quite interesting. The beats are better than the last album. And I don't hate life as much when I listen to Kamikaze as I did when I listened to Revival. I like the theme of nice guy and good guy towards the end of the album. I think that's quite a nice concept. Lucky You is probably the best song on the album. Join the Lucas has got a great verse to start the track. Not Alike with Royce da 5'9 is also quite good. Feels very much like Look Alive by Blockboy JB. Same producer, produced Not Alike. But overall, Kamikaze is very mediocre. It's worth listening to once, but not really much more than that. Therefore, I award it 4 out of 10.